Chapter 8 Venom and Visions. I was on the warpath. Abu's two ferrets, Atlas and Calliope, were at it again. This time they had pounced on a bowl full of eggs left by our housekeeper, Melissa, on the table in the Colina. Eggs were a particular delicacy for these two little thieves, and they had pounced upon the bowl, knocking it over and crashing it to the floor, where the terracotta smashed to smithereens, and all of the dozen or so eggs dashed, Humpty Dumpty style, all over the stone floor. I had heard the commotion, and when I entered the room, these two varmints were busy lapping up the yolks and whites in a frenzy. "Abu!" I called. He was there in a flash, because he understood from the tone of my voice that his two varmints had gotten into trouble again. "Look at this mess," I said. "Abu, you are responsible. These guys are in your charge." I handed him some rags. "Now get busy." Abu was downcast. He squatted on the floor in front of the mess of broken eggshells, elbows on his knees, and his face cradled in the palms of his hands, watching Atlas and Calliope frantically lapping up the scrambled mass of egg yolks and whites, eyes fixed on Abu. "I'm sorry, kiddos," he moaned, Abu, "but sometimes I think they just can't help themselves." I had to turn and walk away for fear of laughing and spoiling the lesson. I went to the front of our little clinic and looked out the door to the throngs of people passing by on the street. As I moved closer to the doorway, my right foot touched something which moved. I looked down. It was a woven wicker basket, cylindrical in shape, lying on its side, the lid lying on the floor beside it. The basket appeared to be empty. I stooped down to pick it up and looked inside. A shiver ran down my spine. My senses sharpened. I became aware of a creeping black shadow moving along the ground, surrounding my feet, stemming from a source somewhere behind me. The Cairo metal around my neck was vibrating. It was glowing like coals from a fireplace. I heard a sound, a deep hiss, almost like a rumble or a growling dog. I slowly turned around, crouching low. There, immediately behind me, raising up on its coils so that its head was almost eye level to mine, and no more than 2 feet away, was a cobra. It fully displayed its hooded throat and beady eyes, and it was supremely angry. It was about 6 feet long, its mouth wide open, fangs fully displayed. It rumbled and hissed at me, staring hypnotically with those large black eyes, projecting pure malice. I froze, not knowing what to do. For many heartbeats we stood looking at each other. That tar-like shadow on the floor swirled like a black fog and began to creep up my legs. I was in great danger. I had to get away from this serpent, but I understood that if I made any quick movements, it would strike. Gathering my nerve and strength, I sprang sideways with a sudden burst, just as the cobra struck mouth wide open, fangs fully deployed. It caught me on the back of my right calf, and I could feel the fangs sink in. But at that very instant, there was an explosion of movement in the room. Time seemed to slow down for me as I lay on my side, taking the whole scene in. Atlas came out of nowhere and jumped upon the cobra, grabbing it by its long, thick tail, sinking its teeth deeply into it, and yanking it away suddenly from me. The cobra shrank back from me immediately, turning to face its attacker. The cobra rose again 2 or 3 feet on its coils, its long cervical ribs expanding again to form that threatening and angry hood. The snake struck again and again at Atlas, but he was far too fast for the reptile. Dodging and weaving, the snake missed its mark again and again. Calliope now joined the fray, striking from another direction. She sprang upon the snake, just as it missed Atlas for the 4th or 5th time. She grabbed the back of the serpent's neck, biting deeply and shaking her head and body violently, left and right, tearing at the snake's flesh. Curling up like a whip, the serpent snapped its body in a mighty spasm and flung Calliope off its neck. Abu, hearing the commotion, ran into the room. He ran about seizing pots and jars and cups and any other object at hand and hurled them at the cobra, hitting it several times with glancing blows. Melissa, coming into the room, screamed and ran out the door, yelling for help. But now the cobra had had enough and began to slither away, carrying Atlas with him, grasping its tail. Realizing that it was not going to get far away, the snake stopped and turned its head back to Atlas, drawing itself up again, hood fully extended, hissing and growling, preparing to strike directly at Atlas, who would not let go of its tail. Just as the cobra lunged, jaws wide open, fangs projecting like 2 daggers at Atlas. In full flight and only inches away from its prey, Calliope, circling around, attacked from another direction, sprang in an arc, and caught the cobra in her open jaws just at the back of the cobra's head. Calliope bit down hard, her teeth sinking into the cobra's brain. The snake writhed and coiled in its death throes. Calliope shook her head back and forth, Atlas pulling at the tail. Neither would let go. After what seemed like an eternity, the thrashing ceased, and the great snake grew limp. Still the 2 ferrets would not let go. "Kyrios! Kyrios!" Abu ran over to me, tears streaming down his face. "What shall I do? Tell me, tell me." "Remind me, Abu, never to complain again about your 2 little thieves. They do come in handy now and then." I sounded more optimistic than I felt. I knew what was coming. I could not be sure how much venom had been injected into my leg. I know how the cobra's venom affects the nervous system. I knew that the cobra's venom contained postsynaptic neurotoxins that spread rapidly in a victim's bloodstream. I knew these toxins were beginning their work, stopping nerve signals from being transmitted to the muscles, and then to the heart and lungs as well. I knew that I probably had only a few minutes left to live. Already at the location of the bite, there was severe pain and swelling. Numbness was spreading up my leg. "Abu, help me to my feet." I struggled to get up, but collapsed again on the floor. My leg now had no feeling, and the muscles were paralyzed. My head began swimming, and I was starting to have difficulty moving other muscles as well. My breathing was becoming labored. I remember lying on my back, looking up at Abu, who was crying and pulling at my arm, trying to get me back to my feet. Then I lost all consciousness. I found myself in a land of dreams. There was a succession of them, or visions, or snippets of memories. I could not be sure which was which. I saw a tunnel of darkness, and then the figure of a bent and crippled man, dressed in rags, carrying a cylindrical woven basket, creeping through the door of our clinic and tossing the basket through the entrance, where I had just found it. I saw the figure of a young woman, dressed in flowing red silk gowns and gilded scale armor, lying on a funeral bier atop a pyramid of brushwood, dressed in flowing red silks. I saw the woman turning her face to me and heard her whisper, "You are bound to me," as she disappeared into the flames. I saw a fire consuming the wood, and then the flight of a large red bird flapping its wings and climbing up to the sun. I saw a tall ship sailing at dusk into a wine-dark sea. I saw dawn breaking across the horizon on an endless plain, and a procession of horsemen with a wagon disappearing into the darkness of an opening in the side of a hill. I saw a boy galloping across the plain, drawing a bow with his arrow pointed to the sky. I saw, like an eagle soaring over this vast plain, massed armies below, clashing on a field of battle. As I watched, among this seething mass of men locked in desperate combat, a darkness rearing up in front of me, and I heard the words, "Beware of the shadow that lies within." I saw a tall, bearded figure, dressed in sumptuous gowns, sitting on an elephant, holding a spear over his head, surrounded by multitudes of white-crested warriors, clashing spears against shields and shouting, "All hail, Lord of 1,000 castles!" I saw a brilliant white star low to the horizon, just above the distant purple mountains at night. I saw that star turn into the face of Gabriel, glowing like lightning, and whispering to me, "Come." In my cell, looking up at the dark iron-barred window penetrating the thick stone wall, I heard myself moaning, "I cannot go back there." I saw the face of Sophia, quiet and radiant, looking at me with longing, her lips moving, saying words I could not hear. I felt the coolness of her touch on my burning face. I felt myself ascending, floating in the air above a group of people, Abu, Melissa, Camilla, Sophia, and others standing around my body. I rose higher until I was above the roof of our apartments, looking over the great city in the twilight. I saw the face of Raphael of the gray eyes hovering over me. I saw his hand appear from the darkness and touch my forehead. I heard him say from a distance, and again closer, and closer yet, until I could hear him whispering in my ear, "Adam, Adam, come back." At Raphael's touch, I felt a tingle, and then an electric-like shock coursing through my body. Sensation was returning to my limbs. I could move them. I could breathe. Now, with enormous effort, I did open my eyes and raised my head. I saw that I was back in Alexandria, in our apartments, on my bed, with a pounding headache. I was not alone. Curled up in a chair beside me was Sophia, fast asleep. Behind her, standing at the door, in his familiar gray robes, was Raphael of the gray eyes. He nodded to me, smiling. "Welcome back, Adam." He looked at Sophia asleep in the chair with great tenderness. "She stayed with you day and night these past 3 days. She would not leave your side. But I will leave you now. Have no fear. We shall see each other again." Then he was gone. I sat up. "Raphael!" I cried. "Wait! Wait!" Sophia stirred and opened her eyes. She sprang to her feet and came to my side, kneeling beside the bed. She caressed my face with her hand. "Adam, anybody, you have come back, just as he said you would. Oh, happy day." She grasped my hand and brought it to her lips, kissing it tenderly. "We thought you were lost to us," she whispered. I could not bear the thought of losing you," she sighed. "Sophia, my lady, thank God," I said. Sophia nodded, leaned forward and kissed me. When she drew back, I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. "Tell me, my lady," I said hoarsely. "You said he told you I would come back. Who is he?" "Why, the man named Raphael, dressed in gray robes," she said. "He came to me while you were burning with fever and in convulsions. He touched you and prayed. He said to me that you would come back to us, and you did." "You saw him then?" I exclaimed, sitting bolt upright. "Why, yes, of course I saw him. Do you know him?" Yes. I will tell you about him, now that he has shown himself to you." "He was such a strange man," Sophia continued. "There was a crowd of us around you when you passed out. He appeared at the door, the crowd parting as he came in. He seemed to know exactly what to do. We carried you to your room and put you on this bed. Then he sat with me, day and night for 3 days. He laid his hands upon you and prayed in a strange language. He was there, but then not there. What I mean is, he was in the room, but in the next instant when I looked up, he was gone. But then he returned again and again. But I never actually saw him come in or leave the room. He was just there." Sophia paused and looked at me. "And when he was there, I felt a great sense of peace. He looked at me with those gray eyes. It seemed that we talked very little, but I felt he could see into my very soul. It was as if he could read my mind, and I could hear his thoughts." "And what did he tell you in those thoughts?" "He showed me the stars, with the brightest one I had ever seen, blazing with an incredible intensity. I knew in my soul that when the time came, I had to follow that star, wherever it went." Sophia squeezed my hand. She looked deep into my eyes. "He told me that whatever happens, I am to go east, far, far away, over the southern seas, to a land called Gandhara and Dragyana, to a great city called Taxila. I heard a strange name, Gondophares or Gaspar, but he would not tell me why I must go or how I would get there. Adam, he told me to fear not, that all will be well. What does this all mean?" "Sophia, my love, my lady, do you remember back to that night of the stars at the Panion? Do you remember me telling you that I have met messengers not from this world? He is one of them. But this was a message for you." "But it was a man, dressed as a man." "Yes, but you told me of his strangeness. He was in this world, but not of it. And he appeared to you as he appeared to me. It is of great significance that he revealed himself to you. These are things that must be pondered. You are a part of this great plan that transcends us all. We must be ready for what comes." Music. Ed Records, Legends. Ed Records, Way Beyond the Walls. Ed Records, A New Hope. Unus ex disciplis mei. Ed Records, Save the World. Archangel Chronicles, copyright 2022. Raymond, all rights reserved.